It was easy to overlook Arcade 1UP's announcement yesterday because if your newsfeed is anything like mine, it was absolutely flooded with CES announcements, graphics cards and TVs and all these wonderful pieces of technology coming out. But Arcade 1UP, they're still at it. And yesterday, they announced not only that Killer Instinct would be making a triumphant return to home arcade, as well as the introduction of what they're touting as the Pro Series. Now, I've been following Arcade 1UP for a very, very long time. If you just look up Arcade 1UP on my channel, I have a litany of reviews of these things, all the different cabinets that have come out, the look, the aesthetics on the side. And I'm going to talk about Killer Instinct specifically in a moment, but I want to just talk largely about what I believe Pro Series is going to bring to the table. One of the biggest frustrations I have always had with Arcade 1UP was that their cabinets always just felt a little cheaper than they should. Now, I understand if you go to your local arcade, if you even have one anymore, those heavy-duty arcade cabinets run upwards of $4,000 to $5,000, but they're very beefy. They're wide. They can accommodate multiple players standing shoulder to shoulder playing together. They have really nice art on the front, or usually pretty nice speaker system. Obviously, if the game just has beeps and boops, you probably don't notice it too much, but they're built with quality and care. And I felt like the early iteration of the Arcade 1UP cabinets really lacked that flair. And over the years, I think they've gotten better, namely with the inclusion of the riser panel, which did raise the cabinet up to a much more respectable height. Additionally, they added other support like Wi-Fi connectivity, so you can do multiplayer matches with other Arcade 1UP players across the globe. Some of them have leaderboards implemented. And it seems like Pro Series is kind of starting to push and bridge that gap between the really cheap, Gen 1 Arcade 1UP and what you would expect to see at an arcade, actually, if you went to a real arcade. Most notably, the two big things that stand out to me, and they do a whole article kind of embedded within this Killer Instinct article here, is it says that the new Pro Series is going to increase the screen size. The old screen was a 17-inch, just basic color screen. It's an LED screen, prone to definitely a lot more smudging, more bleeding. The colors were definitely not as vibrant. Well, now with the new Pro Series, you're going to get a 19-inch screen, so slightly bigger screen, but it's LCD this time, which is nice. And I do agree with what they're saying. I think it will greatly increase contrast and viewing angle, although I don't know if viewing angle is such a big deal in Arcade 1UP cabinets because, like I said, they're a little smaller. You may not have multiple players playing, but you want the brightest, prettiest picture you can get. Well, obviously, that's a no-brainer. The other big thing is they have redone their control sticks. They're going to be using now what they call Happ now Suzo controls. They just call them Happ for short. I don't know why they don't specifically name that here. That's a big deal if you are in the kind of arcade universe. And I'm glad that they have made an upgrade. I have read a lot of people complaining that over time the base controllers that they were putting in there, and I'm talking about, where's the picture here? I'm talking about the buttons you press, obviously, like here, okay? These buttons here used to be kind of like more generic. They tend to wiggle. They get a lot of play in them. Not really along the terms of like analog drift, but more along the lines of they just don't completely sit upright. They seem to slop a little bit, or they have a tendency to pull in one direction. The buttons definitely wore out over time. They didn't spring back up the way they could. And keep in mind, an arcade cabinet, different than your home controller, you're mostly slamming these down with the whole weight of your hand, pushing down hard on your fingers. Typically, your fingers are spread open. You have your middle finger, your ring finger, and your index finger, and you're hitting these very, very quickly, almost along the terms of, like a keyboard. And obviously with the joystick, instead of just using your thumb, you have your entire hand gripped around it like you're holding a can of Coke. And as you're jerking the joystick left, right, up, down, depending on what you're trying to play or what maneuvers you're trying to pull off in the game, those tend to go first. So the fact that they have switched over to Happ controls, I think, is a really big deal. Those are definitely much stronger, more robust control sticks, and I'm really glad that those have been included. And they also said that they're going to be doing more generous spacing between the components. I don't really see that here, but the idea is, again, going back to those Happ controllers, the buttons are going to be spread out a little bit more. I didn't notice any distinguish between player 1 and player 2. That would imply the cabinet was bigger. It is not, as far as I can tell. It's the same small cabinet size, so you're going to be shoulder to shoulder with your friends. It may be hard for two adults to actually play any of these side by side, but that's where they need to go, I think. To me, that's where the Pro Series is kind of falling apart, is we need wider cabinets. If you don't want to make them taller, you don't want to make them deeper, that's fine. They definitely need to be wider. And if you look at all these press photos, as you see the tickers of all the other videos I've done, it's usually one person sitting there playing by themselves, and that kind of defeats the purpose of what an arcade cabinet is. At least if you come from my generation, you'd always walk up, put your quarter on the next player's slot, and that was kind of like you were calling, the winner out to continue their streak. And it was always more of a social type experience where people would be standing huddled around watching the screen. You don't have that capability here with this cabinet, and I don't know what the cost yet is going to be on these Pro Series. They just announced them yesterday. So more to follow, and I'll do some more deep dive reviews as they come out. But I think that's where it's really lacking. The rest of the stuff I don't think is going to really stand out to too many people. With the lit marquee, that's something that has been existing for a while. Oh, they do actually call out Happ here. Okay, I'm glad. I thought they didn't. There it is. There's the word Happ right there. The Happ joysticks and the buttons are nice. Upgraded speaker grills and speakers. Yeah, I guess that's a good thing. The speaker grill specifically, they're talking about this just little black piece. Can you even see it on these photos? Let's see. They even show, yeah, they're talking about this. That's an upgraded speaker grill. I don't know if that's really something to tout. It's a little small piece of plastic, but okay. Anything else here that really stands out? Nothing specifically. So that's just kind of an overview of the Pro Series, I guess. And I'll be curious to see as more of these come out, if there is a bigger demand. The cost is still probably going to be significant. I suspect this will be more than the standard cabinet, probably because of the cost of the increased screen, which honestly should be negligible in today's market. The Happ controller may cost a bit more. But yeah, I think that's where we need to go. We need a little bit wider. We need a little bit, more space to play. But specific to this arcade cabinet, this being the Killer Instinct Pro Series edition, comes with all the good loot and goodies here. Not only are you going to get the actual cabinet with the artwork on the side and a nice deck plate, you're also going to get a stool that matches, and a mat and a tin sign, a licensed tin sign, which I thought was very interesting. A lot of times you look at these press photos and you see how things are framed and you're like, oh, look, they put in the cactus or a wood floor. It looks like a really cool place to hang out, right? But it was interesting that I didn't realize the tin sign is actually a front and center right there on the back, and that you're going to get that very sign. You can hang it up right next to your cabinet. This could be like the Killer Instinct zone. The bar stool is nice. I'm glad to see they continue to improve on their bar stools, specifically with back support. As a person who owns a home who has bar stools in his own home, I can tell you that back support is almost an absolute requirement. You do not have one of these, your back is going to be on fire within minutes. So it's glad that they gave a lean bar. You can actually lean back, and bar stools aren't cheap. Just go look them up. You'll see what I mean. So it's nice. It matches the cabinet. It's got the logo. I'm happy to see that. The mat is nice too. I'm glad to see they continue to expand kind of the experience. I do remember in some of the older arcade games, the mats were always something that definitely stood out. And sometimes even in the old days, they had places where next players would stand. I remember seeing mats that would kick off to one side where player 1 and player 2 would stand, and then player 3 waiting in the wings would stand off stage right, essentially. There's that stage left. But they would stand off to the side, and it was always a lot of fun to just kind of see and feel that experience. So the more they bring to the home and they bridge that gap, I think the better it's going to be. But if you are interested, I will post a link to this website in the description below. Right now, the only thing you could do is be notified when they go live. If more cabinets come out that do seem of interest and that do have the really cool Pro Series features or whatever, I will gladly do videos on them. But for now, I think the Killer Instinct one is the one that definitely stood out to me. So that wraps up today's video. Hope you found it informative. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.